Welcome along to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. We're back after what I would call an eventful international break. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by Mark O'Haire and Adrian Clarke. And before we get going, to preview our regular slot, which will be 4 marquee Premier League games, and then cover EFL, rest of the world action, long shot section, best bet section, and all of those are timestamped incidentally in the description. Adrian, I touched on the international break. Normally we don't have many talking points, but I mean, where do we start? I guess no better place than Thomas Tuchel is the New England manager. Your thoughts, please?
Yeah, huge. I mean, it happened very quickly, didn't it? In the end, it felt like the FA were dithering for months and months and months. As it turns out, they weren't. They were just being really private in terms of interviewing 10 people, 10 candidates. I'd love to know who was interviewed for that gig. To go down to 10 would throw out some very interesting names, I would imagine. But I think they've struck out on the right one. Thomas Tuchel is a better tactician than the English candidates, in my opinion. I can't think of an English manager that I would prefer to have, if I'm being honest. Obviously, Pep Guardiola is a bit of a pipe dream, and if that's not doable, then Tuchel for me is up there. I've written a piece on him for the Premier League. His record is among the best of his generation. The win ratios in particular, but the way his teams keep the ball. But he's also versatile. He's used every formation under the sun during his career. He's a possession manager, but he showed when winning the Champions League in the semi against Real Madrid, in the final against City, that he can flip it around and turn it the other way really cleverly. So now England have got a top quality manager now. It's just there's no excuse not to go deep at the World Cup finals and maybe win it.
Yeah, I was surprised at how confident he was in his interviews, and from someone outside of England, I think personally that makes them a better team or more feared in these competitions. So from an English point of view, I would be delighted. Mark, quick word in terms of betting wise. I mean, when you heard the news, do England become a better team because Thomas Tuchel is the manager?
Yeah, for all the reasons Adrian's outlined there, I think it's an upgrade, absolutely. A master tactician, which is what you want really in these major tournament finals. And as a non-Englishman, I'm a bit fearful about the prospect of England.
Come on, you can come across to our side, Mark. You sound English. Come back. All is forgiven.
I'm all right, thank you. But I mean, the World Cup. There's still a lot of football still to be played. Brazil are a bit of a low ebb at the minute. Argentina, been through a bit of a rocky spell themselves. I'm not making any sort of major calls right now. So much football still to be played, and eager to see how England set up under Tuchel. The only thing I would say, which has probably been mentioned a few times already elsewhere, but he's a very abrasive character. So eager to see how that plays out, because he's not afraid of sort of letting his opinions known and rubbing people up the wrong way. And look, he's got a point to prove, especially after how Bayern Munich ended up last season, which was a bit of a shocker, really. So, yeah, just quite fascinating to see how it works out. But I definitely think you have to upgrade England on the basis of that appointment.
Okay, maybe that just says it all. Surprised at some of the reaction, to be honest, from certain pundits. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a fun 18 months to watch. I'm not going to lie. It is going to be box office stuff. Before we get going on the Matchbook Football Podcast, if you hit that like button, subscribe or follow completely for free wherever you're watching or listening, but much appreciated. Insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of all the bets. Do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. You will get the best price in the odds checker grid for all our exchange offering. But also, if you want that sportsbook element of the bet builders, you can do that, and all the football games we'll be covering today. And finally, it is £10 podcast bet builder money back special this week. It will be on one of the 3 o'clock games because the guys couldn't agree on the marquee Liverpool-Chelsea game. More of that later on, but you can check out the description if you want to go straight to that game. But let's start with Newcastle versus Brighton. This should be a fun game. It's Saturday 3 p.m, but I think at least 2 or 3 of the 3 p.m. games are really good games this weekend. Newcastle 206 favourites to Brighton, who are 375. The draw is available at 395. Both teams to score, yes, is 153, another low price with Brighton involved. And the Asian handicap sees Brighton get a half-goal head start. 3.5 is the total. So, Mark, you wanted to pick this game. I mean, it's no prizes for guessing where you're sort of leaning, but back it up again with a few stats and facts,
Yeah, I was hoping to find something a bit more straightforward, but obviously the market is already expecting goals in this game, as you probably expect ourselves. And so I've had to combine it with cards. But obviously this is the first game since the international break, and before that we saw Brighton sign off with that turnaround victory against Tottenham at the Amex. So yeah, I said before that game, I didn't really want to get involved with the match outcome because I don't think you can completely read either side very well at the minute. I don't think either are completely trustworthy. They both have potential to be brilliant, but also spectacularly bad, and we've seen that. Great examples of it: Brighton, the last away trip to Chelsea, and Spurs obviously going away to Brighton as well. But I think with Brighton, you can trust goals. Cards and corners tend to come alongside that as well. But thankfully, the sort of selection against Spurs paid out quite nicely, and it was quite a fun play to sort of cheer on. And I've kind of taken the same approach here, really, by attacking over 2.5 goals and over 39.5 booking points, which gives us a 10 to 11 shots. So again, sort of just taking the match result out of it, supporting goals and cards, and just action, really. So now Newcastle were involved in that dreadfully dull 0-0 against Everton on the same weekend as Brighton were beating Spurs. But they were the better of the two sides. I don't think we can sort of disagree with that. They had the penalty save. They did create more opportunities. They had 12 shots in the box compared to Everton's 2, and they were without Isak and Wilson. And there's a chance that either or even both of them might be available this weekend, which I think gives Newcastle a big boost in forward areas, as does the absence of Van Heck, Brighton's best defender. Being back at home as well will give Newcastle a boost. They've scored in the last 22 home league games since the start of last season, averaging 2.4 goals per game, which is an incredible output, really. And they'll be encouraged. I think they should be able or capable of scoring at least once, possibly twice, against the Brighton side. Have kept just 4 clean sheets on the road since the start of last season themselves. So, yeah, I've no doubt Newcastle will get on the score sheet here, and I think they can and will cause Brighton plenty of problems. But as we know so far with Brighton under Hursler, that they've got plenty of thrust and ability of their own. They've scored twice or more in 5 of 7 since he's come in. So I think goals have to be considered. Both teams have a 64% hit rate for overs in their respective home and away matches since the start of last season. Those matches have averaged 3.5 and 3.23 goals per game. So I think over 2.5 goals is a very solid base foundation for a selection here. And as I say, I'm going to top up with cards. Both sides have seen 7 of their opening 8 league games feature at least 4 cards. The 2 matches that didn't produced exactly 3 cards. So just 1 off are required output here. And the referee, Peter Banks, is a very solid appointment for cards backers as well. He's delivered 4 or more cards in 14 of his last 17 league matches. And this season, his card totals are 7, 6, 6, 5, 3. So expecting that to go close. I think both sides are capable of fouling, tactical fouling, or just disrupting play and attracting the ire of the referee. But also I think both sides are more than capable of scoring and also conceding. And I think both like to play proactive football, so it should be a decent watch. It's a shame it's a 3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday, because I think it's the kind of game which I think would get most people excited on a TV schedule. So, but yeah, goals and cards for me.
Yeah, really good game. Over 2.5 goals, over 39.5 booking points. Go to the bet builder, and Mark O'Hare's selection is 191. Adrian, go from Brighton point of view, because I find them a tough team to get a hold of exactly where they are. I think the game against Spurs is a perfect example. Really poor first half, sensational second half. Where are they at the moment in terms of where you're thinking they could end up this season?
Yeah, the top 10 for sure. But I still think they're capable of top 6, Brighton, but they'll have to defend a lot better than they have done of late. You know, it's been 8 goals in the last 3 Premier League games. You know, they're coming back from behind against Spurs. You had the 4-2 defeat at Chelsea, a 2-2 with Forest. It's a little bit chaotic, probably too chaotic really for them to consistently churn out the results they need to get into the top 6 at the moment. But let's see if they can improve. They've certainly got players that will hurt you, that will score goals. You know, I really like the wingers. I've always liked Mitoma since he came in, but Minte and some of the others are fantastic. They do miss João Pedro. That's I think he knits it together really nicely. I thought he was excellent last season. So it's not great for him or the team that he's out at the moment. I can't trust them going to St James's Park. St James's Park is a cauldron. Mark's just rattled off the stats about 22 consecutive games they've scored, averaging 2.4 goals a game at St James's. That's pretty formidable. And if you're not defending well, and they're not, I think Van Hecker has been past fit. I think that the press conference this morning, it was said that he's available. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. But We'll find out, won't we? But he will make a difference, but not it won't make the complete difference here. I think that with Isak and Wilson back, they're a bit of a time away from St James's. I think it'd be a great atmosphere. I think the teams will be really, really up for it. There's no there's no cloud hanging over Eddie Howe, is there, in terms of the England job either. So yeah, even though I think both teams can hurt one another, Newcastle, I would fancy to get the job done here. I don't think they'll get beaten. They're not used to losing at home, are they? Unbeaten in their last 11 at home, 6 wins, 5 draws. Yeah, I think they can win this one. So yeah, my pick is an odds against selection. Newcastle to win and over 1.5 goals, which is obviously a little bit cautious, but you still get 2.32 on that, which I thought was pretty good.
Okay, the jump is from 206 for Newcastle to win to 232, including over in 1.5 goals. I'm going to combine the guys' selection here because this could be the game of the week in terms of entertainment. Going to go with Adrian's Newcastle win. Marks over 2.5 goals, including over 39.5 booking points. You get 3.1. That is the £10 money back podcast bet builder. All you have to do is just back that and you'll have a free bet if it loses up to £10 in your matchbook account on Monday morning. Now, this next game is Adrian's selection here, Fulham versus Aston Villa, or Adrian's game of choice. Another very fun game. These are two form sides in the Premier League. Fulham 252 favourites to Villa 3.0. The draw 3.6. Both teams to score yes is 166. Villa getting a quarter goal head start in the Asian handicap line. The total is 2.5 here, Adrian. I mean, two really good sides here. Which way you thinking this could go?
Yeah, I just thought it was well worth talking about Fulham, really. That's why I wanted to include it. And it does have the look of a good game. It really does. Villa have had a good record, I have to say, against Fulham in recent times. They've won 5 of the last 6 against them. But for me, Fulham away is a tough game for most teams, I think, this season. Obviously, they're unbeaten at home so far this season, 2 good wins and a draw. The only games Fulham have lost are on the opening night at Man United, where I thought they were, a little bit unlucky not to get a draw. And then they put up a really good show against Man City, didn't they? Where they had them worried a little bit in the 3-2 loss. So Fulham are good, and they are hard. They're hard to beat. I think that both teams are going to be front-footed, but at the same time, I don't see it getting out of hand. You got 2 excellent goalkeepers in Leno and Martinez, and actually, statistically, both those goalkeepers are 2 of the least busy goalkeepers in the Premier League this season. Villa ranked 4th best for opposition touches in their own box. Fulham a 6th best, which I think is really impressive from them. Remember, they lost Raul Paulinho, Fulham, but what they're doing, they're working super hard all over the pitch to defend from the front, in midfield, to protect the back four and the goalkeeper. And they're keeping teams at arm's length very effectively, and they're doing it with really just one defensive midfielder. They've got Sasa Lukic and then they've had Andreas Pereira in alongside him, which seems bonkers, but they're better defensively. I suppose a lot of that might be to do with Joachim Andersen coming in. He's been excellent. And the fullbacks have been great, I think, for Fulham. Kenny Tete has sort of seen off Castagna, and Anthony Robinson is a very good left back. I think if Anthony Robinson was English, not American, he'd be knocking on the door for a place in the England team. So, there's a lot to like about Fulham, I think. And, Villa have got Champions League this week with Bologna at home on Tuesday. So not a massive turnaround for them. I'm not going to criticise Aston Villa. They've been, by and large, been very good. Not quite at it against Manchester United in that goalless draw. Before that, they drew at Ipswich. So Premier League results, not amazing. And I can see them dropping points here, actually, even though, Duran and Watkins both in good nick. Still no McGinn. I think he's a big player for Aston Villa. I think Fulham, with the form that they're in, at home, can at least draw this game. So I'm going to go with Fulham double chance. And because they both keep, they don't give that many chances away, I'm going to go with under 3.5 goals. I'm going to pair that together. So we get a stack of score lines there for 2.15. The only thing that's really going to go against us is, of course, the Villa win.
Okay, Fulham double chance and under 3.5 goals, 2.15, as Adrian alluded to there. Mark, if Fulham win, they go level with Villa, which I think says a lot about the job Marco Silva's done already this season.
Yeah, tremendous. I foolishly put them up as a potential relegation shot at the prices. I thought Palhinha would be an enormous miss, but Lukic has been fantastic in that role. And as Adrian says, Andres Pereira, like, I still can't understand what's going on there and how they're making it work. But it is slight concern coming into the weekend. Lukic went off with a shoulder injury on international duty. He's now rated doubtful for this. Sander Berger might come in if he is missing. But yeah, they came out of that game of Man City with a huge amount of credit. Bonkers how they didn't manage to get something out of that game, in fairness to him. And Silva, just yet again, just showing what a classy act he is. You know, surprising everyone with the team selection, dropping Emile Smith-Rowe, but the plan he devised worked perfectly. He's sort of utilising Traore's pace on the counter, and Raul Jimenez as the target man, but not as your kind of old style target man. He's so much better now. Well, he's always been brilliant kind of as that sort of hold-up play, but it's not all about his head these days. He's such a wonderful talent, and it's nice to see those two sort of blend together and work so well and cause City so many problems. But yeah, it's no exaggeration to say Fulham could have scored at least 3 or 4 goals in that game, and they have been largely excellent this season. I've actually got them 5th on expected points, which is way above expectations, and yeah, performing quite nicely in both boxes, especially defensively, because they're allowing the fewest big chances in the Premier League so far this season, which is incredibly commendable. But I do think they will get tested here. They're unlikely to be as tame as they were against United, which I think is understandable. The lack of energy, lack of, coming so soon after the Bayern Munich match and the emotion of that game. It didn't help that they were missing Onana, Ramsey, Kamara and McGinn. I think all of those players are due back this weekend, bar Kamara. We'll have to wait and see what Unai Emery says at this press conference. But if at least 2 of those players are fit and available, that's a big boost to that midfield. And they've been pretty decent for the most part. Their defensive data is much better than the 9 goals they've conceded so far suggests. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this contest. We've got 2 teams here who both won the non-penalty expected goals count in 5 of their first 7 games. I think the match prices are fair enough, really, considering that. And I don't want to take a firm view on either side, really. So instead, I like the look of goals, actually, in this game. I know Adrian doesn't think it will escalate, and I'm not suggesting there will be 4 or more goals, but I think both teams can score. It's occurred in 5 of their first 7 games for each team. They've each managed just 1 clean sheet, despite that impressive defensive data. And I do think there's enough threats in forward areas to suggest that both sides could and should get on the score sheet. So I'm going to combine it with both teams to be booked as well. Both teams over 9.5 booking points, which gives us a 4 to 5 shot, 1.8. Cards wise, both teams have been booked in 13 of their combined 14 games. 12 of those matches actually featured 4 or more cards, if you wanted to push that bet a little bit further. And yeah, bizarrely, Darren England, the official here, did a recent spell out in Japan, but domestically in England, he's been very sort of decent at giving us at least 3 cards. 25 of his last 26 league games have produced at minimum of 3 cards or more. So, if you get a 3-card spread or better, you're expecting both sides to oblige in that department. So, yeah, both teams to score and both teams to be booked at 1.8.
Okay, it's wherever you want to go as the listener. If you want to go pro goals with Mark or Adrian with siding with Fulham double chance, I'm going to lean with Fulham double chance. I think this could be a good spot for them here. And under 3.5 goals, 2.15, the podcast selection. Mark's game of choice next, which is Wolves versus Manchester City. Wolves 10.0 at home to Man City, who are 134. Draws 6.2. Both teams to score, yes, 183. The Asian handicap line will get Wolves a 1.5 head start at just above even money. 3.5 is the total. Mark, you want to talk about this game, maybe from a Wolves point of view with Gary O'Neill. I think most people understand they played well in those first few games, and that was the feeling after losing to Liverpool. But I did feel that Brentford performance was very disappointing. So how do you measure that going into this home game?
Yeah, it's difficult. I agree with what you're saying there. 1 point from their first 7 games, I don't think is a fair reflection on Wolves' performances this season so far. But I think the bigger story here is Wolves' long-term form hasn't been good. 6 points from the last 17 Premier League games, either side of the summer, and that's the key issue I think affecting supporters at the minute. Is it's not just this season, results haven't been good. They've only beaten 1 current Premier League team at home in 2024 as well, which is obviously before hosting Man City. But as you say, that game against Brentford was bleak. They somehow managed to score 3 goals, but defensively they were absolutely atrocious, and that's an understatement, to be honest. And O'Neill ripped into his team after the game, didn't he? He said it's the worst game. as a coach, it's the furthest I've seen the group from what we wanted to look like. We were wide open, crazy goals to concede, crazy decisions with and without the ball. So he didn't hold back, and sort of fascinated to see what the reaction is, because it can be, well, it can go both ways, can't it? So he's under pressure. Recently, his team have not been organised well enough. They've been, leaving plenty of gaps in midfield. Their set piece marking has been criminal. I do feel a little bit sorry for him because he's been let down by the club's lack of movement in the transfer market over the last 2 summers, especially defensively, losing your key players and not really replacing them with strong Premier League ability, if you like. But I still think they might be able to cause City a couple of problems here. I certainly don't expect them to win this match whatsoever, the way in which they're defending at the minute. But they will take heart from Man City's recent performances, because in turnovers, in counters, in transitions, City have looked vulnerable without Rodri, obviously. But Fulham and Brentford showed at the Etihad how easily you can take City apart if they're not on it and if your game plan is on it. And it's a game plan that's been semi-successful, I think, for Gary O'Neill and Wolves in the past. So in that regard, I think they will be well prepared. We saw against Liverpool in fleeting moments, they caused them problems. So, yeah, I think the price on City to win is obviously horribly short, but you can boost that price from about 1.35 to about 276 by including both teams to score, City to win and both teams to score. So bear in mind, both teams have scored in each of City's last 6 Premier League games. They've also given away 14 big chances in the Premier League this season. 6 sides have allowed fewer. They've also conceded in 25 of the last 36 league games. Rodri has missed, including 10 of 14 away. And if you look at Wolves' season so far, in the big matches against the big teams, 0-0 at Arsenal in defeat on the opening day. Raya made at least one exceptional save that day. They scored twice at home to Chelsea, generated close to 2 expected goals, could have scored more. They scored away at Villa, scored at home to Liverpool too. Their schedule has been really, really hard, but all 7 of their opponents are in the top 11, but they've scored in 6 of those 7, should have scored in the 7th as well. So, I think they can get on the score sheet, but ultimately City should be scoring at least twice or 3 times themselves. So I think that boost, including both teams to score, just it's got me hooked. So 276 on City for both teams to score.
Yeah, that's 276. Seems a big enough price. Adrian, where do you stand with Gary O'Neill? Because I'll give you just where I think the fans are, but also the media, because I think Jonathan Pearce was interviewing after his Liverpool game. He said, the commentators do the interviews on Match of the Day. He said, at the end of the interview, said, Gary, I'm certain this will turn around for you. Your team's playing well. You've had a hard run of fixtures. And then Gary Lineker came back saying, let's hope that's not the commentator's curse to Jonathan, which I thought was quite funny. Yeah. But the reason I bring, a great one. The reason I bring all that up is because since then they've lost to Brentford. We have that big sample size from this season and the end of last season. Can he turn it around here? And is this the game that they can maybe get on the score sheet, or do you fear for him with Wolves long term?
Yeah, he can turn it around because he's a good manager, and I like Gary O'Neill. But those numbers they're telling, aren't they? It's relegation form at the end of last season, coupled with the start of this, and yeah, I do think the schedule has been really cruel on them. I do. So that's the pass. Even Brentford away. I know the nature of the performance was poor, but Brentford away isn't an easy game. So, and this certainly isn't. It does look easier from November onwards. November towards Christmas, they've got a lot of 6-pointers against teams in the bottom half. So I would like him to get the chance to resurrect their season. But in the here and now, I can't fancy them here. Sorry, just can't. I know they won the game last year, didn't they? 2-1 against City, famous win. But I don't see history repeating itself. Just think defensively that they're just not good enough at the moment. Obviously, I think they've lost Mosquera now, but the centre-back partnership is wobbly. I wrote a piece on Wolves and what O'Neill needs to do during this international break last week. And yet my analysis of them was fairly brutal. Set pieces are unbelievably bad in terms of their marking setup. So they've got to fix that. But the more worrying sign is that Wolves don't track runners. Look at the goals they've conceded. There's been a few of them where people have just run off markers and just made things happen. And that comes down to effort, and it's up to Gary to knock that out of the Wolves players and to get them tuned up. I think he would have worked really hard the last couple of weeks with whoever's around. I think they'll go 5 at the back and that they'll change things up. They have to. I still don't think they'll win this game. I think, actually, I'm so confident that City will win with something to spare that I'm going to go with Man City -1.5 goals. So we're looking for a 2-goal margin or more for City to for this bet to land. It's still really short at 1.89, but it's landed in 7 of City's last 8 away games. It's landed in 2 or 3 this season. You have to go all the way back to March, where they drew 1-1 with Liverpool for that sort of run to have ended. So, yeah, they're used to going away and winning with relative ease. Wolves are letting 21 goals, and they're up against Haaland. Haaland loves playing Wolves. He's got 8 and 4 against Wolves. And I just think sometimes you just look at the individuals. I think they're going to be too strong for the players that they're directly up against, and that's kind of where I'm at with City and Wolves here. So, yeah, look, Wolves aren't as bad as the numbers tell you they are. There's no doubt about that. And they do have a goal threat. Mark's absolutely right. But if they get one, I see City getting 3, or maybe even more. So, yeah, this isn't the day, I don't think, for Wolves to turn their season around.
Did you say Haaland's? Yeah, go on, Mark.
I was going to say, just on Gary O'Neill's future, it'll be the most ridiculous thing ever if Wolves get beaten by City at the weekend and he gets sacked despite just going through an international break. Because if you look at Wolves' schedule so far, it's been tough. But after this, I know they've got Brighton away the week after. It's very, very achievable right up until Christmas. You've got Palace, Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, West Ham, Ipswich, Leicester. That's an opportunity for him to turn it around. So if he does get sacked after this weekend, if Wolves do lose by a 2-goal margin or more, it's just bonkers. I do wonder about football clubs and their sort of pre-planning if that is the case.
And I do feel the fans are definitely with him as well. Did you say Haaland had 8 goals in 4 games against Wolves, Adrian?
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
okay.
He averages 1 every 40 minutes against them.
Okay.
But most of those goals were at the Etihad. But it's. I wouldn't want to be a Wolves centre back in this game. Just put it that way.
Let's lock in. I think the safer option of City laying 1.5 goals here, 189 could be the one, but Mark's one looks quite juicy too at 276. So that's the selection, though. Adrian's selection on the podcast. And the final game, Liverpool versus Chelsea. We have a disagreement on the game of the day here. So while we're tuning in for this, Liverpool 171, Chelsea 5.2 at Anfield. The draw is 4.4. Both teams to score. Yes, the market expecting a lot of goals. 152. The Asian handicap line sees Chelsea get a 3/4 goal head start. 3.5 is the total. Adrian, there is disagreement not just between you and Mark, but I think overall in terms of what to expect going into this game. I think like you have the big sample size with Liverpool throughout the years of clearly being a better team than Chelsea, but it's Chelsea's great start to the season. Maresca's doing a lot of good things there. Where do you stand between those 2 points of view?
I think they're both doing well. Yeah, I think it's a cracking game. Great time for Chelsea to go to Anfield as well because they've won, was it 3 away games in a row? Yeah. He's looking to become only the 5th manager to win each of his first 4 away Premier League games. Quite the feat. Slot's done it. The other 3, Bobby Gould, John Gregory and Luis Felipe Scolari. So quite an eclectic mix there. But look, it'd be some achievement for Maresca if they can go to Anfield and win like Forest did. But I do think Liverpool's formidable record at Anfield has to be respected. They did batter Chelsea in this fixture last year. I worked on the game and Chelsea were annihilated, really. And there might be some residual scars from that. What I will say in Chelsea's favour is that they're very good on the break. They've been superb on counters this season. I mean, Palmer and Madueke and Jackson, they've combined amazingly well. They've got real good legs and energy and quality, haven't they? I think no one's had more shots from fast breaks than Chelsea, and that's probably how they'll play here. I would expect Liverpool to try and control the game, so they could do a Forest on Liverpool in terms of breaking at speed and scoring goals, or at least 1 goal. So that I give Chelsea a shot at scoring here, absolutely. But I don't know about them defensively. I don't know about how good they are without the ball yet. Haven't had the toughest schedule. They have conceded quite a lot of goals, Chelsea, already. And I just think that Liverpool, with their all-star attack at Anfield in a big game, Super Sunday, I can see cracks appearing in the Chelsea rearguard. And I'm still not sold on the partnership either between Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. I think Caicedo's been much better this season, but I still don't think it's going to work. So, yeah, I think that Liverpool can outscore Chelsea. That's how I'm absolutely looking at this game. Loads to like about Chelsea. We know that. Liverpool, their record defensively is outstanding this season. But again, who have they played? So I can see them conceding 1 goal here, Liverpool. Maybe 2, but I still think they'll win the game. I just do, because they've got players at the top end of the pitch that are banging form that I think can hurt a Chelsea team that's still in development. For me, their league position is a little bit false, even though they've been much better than what I imagined. So, yeah, for me, Liverpool and both teams to score is the selection, 2.88.
Okay, yeah. Mark, what about that argument that this Liverpool attack could potentially just be too good or too strong for that Chelsea defence?
Yeah, it's a fair argument. I mean, I have to put my cards on the table here and say this is the weakest of the 4 games we've previewed in terms of my personal betting opinion. I found it very difficult, and I think I'll get a much better picture of both teams after this game, because I think there are question marks surrounding both. But this is a really interesting match. Just think it's a really tricky betting heat. So in terms of Liverpool, obviously the Premier League table and the data show Liverpool have been the best side in the Premier League so far this season, almost flawless in terms of their results. But as Adrian says, the strength of schedule has to be taken into account. And that's actually quite interesting when you delve into it. So I produced various data-led tables, one of which is based around traditional expected points, which is generated by expected goals on a game-to-game basis. But the other one is expected points according to the pre-match odds offered. So I take the closing prices and you basically split the points accordingly based on the odds available. And then you sort of aggregate them and you can put together a little league table based on what the market expects the league table to look like based on the pre-match odds. And yeah, Liverpool are averaging around about 2.23 expected points per game based on their actual performances. If you took the betting odds, it would have come in at 2.33. So not far off it, but actually slightly underperformance, which I thought was quite interesting. Not by much, but they've not been as dominant as the odds suggest they should have been so far, which kind of gives you the right impression that the schedule hasn't been very tough. All 6 of their league wins have come against bottom half teams. Their only defeat came against Forest, who sit in 10th. They've not faced anyone higher than that, and this is undoubtedly their biggest test in the new era, if you like. And just intrigued to see how it plays out, because Chelsea themselves are just incredibly hard to read. I've had my fingers burnt numerous times on this show opposing them. Now I'm going to be with them because I'm going to put them up with a +1 start at 184, just because I don't think there's that big a difference in terms of where the 2 teams are at right now compared to what the market is telling us. And I just think there's still a question mark over Liverpool. Obviously, the defence has stood very, very strong so far this season. But again, who have they played? Chelsea have looked ropey defensively and a little bit unreliable. But I think that's a touch of inexperience, a touch of immaturity, which perhaps we saw against Forest before the international break. I mean, they've already had 27 yellow cards, and 10 of those have been given for dissent, arguing, or excessive celebrations. And they've already come into this game without Fofana and Cucurella, who've already collected 5 yellow cards, which is just bonkers, really. We're not even in sort of late October. But Reece James could be back. Cole Welsh should be back as well. So they have got options. Obviously not ideal going to Anfield, but going back to expected points, they're actually second behind Liverpool in the XP table based on the XG outputs of every game so far. So they're playing way above pre-match odds expectations under Maresca. They have been erratic, but Liverpool have got plenty of quality in forward areas, but so have Chelsea. Like, Chelsea have been cutting some teams to shreds when sort of served up without a huge amount, really. And yeah, I mean, how do we formulate that into a bet? It's a tricky one. So that's why I've gone with Chelsea +1, because I do expect them to score at Anfield. And if they do score, as the market suggests, because BTTS is 143, Liverpool then need 3 goals for the Chelsea +1 bet to lose. And look, they're more than capable of it, but I think Liverpool under Slot are much more measured, much more controlled, and I'm not really expecting a 3 or 4 goal haul from Liverpool in this match, in all honesty. So, perhaps the best value play might be to back something like BTTS and draw at a really big price. But yeah, I'm going to just be with Chelsea. But look, not a strong opinion whatsoever. I won't be betting on the major markets in this game.
Okay, yeah, we'll go with Adrian's selection here. I have Liverpool both teams to score. Yes, 288. Incidentally, Kelleher will be in goal for Liverpool, and he's had a good international break as well, aside from that mistake. So well worth hoping he'll be playing well from an Irish point of view. Before we get going, so insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. If you're watching on the YouTube live stream, great community we're building here. If you take 2 seconds just to hit that like button, would be much appreciated. Helps our content get out to a wider audience. Let's go to EFL, Premier League, rest of the world, wherever you want to do section. And Adrian, why not? Let's bring the Arsenal back into it. I mean, decent start to the season. Let's go.
We're not talking about them enough, are we?
No.
Now, this is just, it's price based. Mark O'Haire's rubbing off on me finally. Arsenal at 1.72 to win this game. Yeah, if you think they'll win to 0, as I think is quite probable, it jumps to 3.15, which I think is a colossal leap, really, for a team that has won to 0 away from home in the Premier League in 8 of their last 11 matches. So, you know, this is the kind of match that Arsenal, since the turn of the year, have been going, you know, travelling to, winning and not conceding any goals. Last season, 3-0. 3-0 and 4-0, actually. The home and away games against Bournemouth. So, yeah, I think it's absolutely not beyond the stretch of imagination to think that Arsenal can win to 0 here. The Cherries did blank against Chelsea and Liverpool, the two sort of real toughies that they've faced so far. They're a good team. They're hard to play against. I don't think this is a gimme game for Arsenal, but they can. They'll go about it sensibly, no doubt about that, and they'll look to keep that clean sheet and to score 2 or 3 goals. Just, you know, this stat blows my mind, really. In 2024, away from home, Arsenal have trailed for 18 minutes, which I just think is remarkable. And that was the time it took for Calafiori to equalise Haaland's opener at the Etihad. So, you know, Arsenal have been in full control on the road throughout this calendar year. And look, it might not happen for them here, but I think it's a good chance it will. So for that reason, yeah, Arsenal to beat Bournemouth and to do it with a clean sheet. That's 3.15.
Okay, for what it's worth, does seem a really big jump. Really, really big jump. Second selection, Crewe, and under 3.5 goals versus Salford, who second lowest goals they've scored this season, 7 goals from 10 league games, Adrian.
Yeah. Well, the reason I picked it is because I don't like Salford. I don't think something's not right there. It's not really happening for Carl Robinson. I think Nicky Butt's recently resigned. Chris Casper's gone. It's sort of a lot of change there. And on the pitch, it's not really clicked. The players are quite good on paper, but they've not been playing very well. They've only scored twice, Salford in 4 away games. Picked up some draws, but they've been very uninspired on the road, and they've not scored very many goals at home either. Crewe are quite shot shy as well. So the second fewest shots have come from Salford. The third fewest have actually come from Crewe. That's mainly because they've been missing a few of their attackers. I think 1 or 2 might be available to return this weekend. But what Crewe are is really good at the back and good at home. They got beat 5-0 by Chesterfield earlier on in the season, back in August. Since then, 4 home games, no goals conceded, and they've won. I think 3 of those 4, with a 0-0 in between. So yeah, Crewe are very solid, particularly at home, and Salford are in a bit of a bad place. It's not happening for them. Not scoring goals. They're not winning games. I think this is a match that they could comfortably lose, and I think that if you pair the Crewe win with under 3.5, because neither are exactly ripping it up at the attacking end of the pitch, a price of 2.88 on the home win here is pretty good. Salford haven't won away from home since April, so you know it's going to be a stretch to back them here. So yeah, Crewe to win under 3.5 goals, 2.88.
Okay, Crew under 3.5 goals and Arsenal both teams to score no. Two big prices from Adrian in this section. Mark, over to Motherwell versus Dundee. Motherwell fourth in league, taking on a Dundee side who've scored the same amount as league goals this season as Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, Scottish Premiership has been quite good fun to follow this season in terms of goals output. 2.95 goals, 61% of games going over 2.5. Not all of that is down to the old firm either. Motherwell and Dundee have been two of the sort of chief protagonists in that particular market. And yeah, looking forward to how they go when they face off against each other, because over 2.5 goals and both teams to score has landed in 12 of their combined 14 league fixtures already this season. A repeat is 2.05 on Saturday. I like that. Motherwell going great guns at the minute. 4 wins alongside losses against Aberdeen and Rangers in the last 6. Now Aberdeen, as we know, are going brilliantly so far this season, and Rangers are always going to be strong. So you can kind of understand those defeats. But the fact that both defeats came by the same 2-1 scoreline and Motherwell were very competitive in both will give them plenty of confidence going into this game. They have been largely quite entertaining since their opening day game. They've played 6 matches in the Premiership. All 6 have gone over 2.5 goals and both teams to score, averaging 2.91 expected goals. And then they're playing a Dundee side who are enduring a difficult spell at the minute. Just the 1 win in 7 so far this season, despite yet playing the old firm. So this is a big game for Dundee. They've scored in all bar 1 game, though. And they've actually scored at least twice in 5 of those 7 games. The issue is defensively, where they're still yet to keep a clean sheet, and 6 of their opponents have scored at least twice against them. So 5 of their 7 matches have gone over 3.5 goals. The XG average is hitting a pretty solid 2.8. So, yeah, you can get over 2.5 goals at a very backable price, around about 1.8, but include both teams to score, and it pushes to an odds against price. And as I say, it's landed in 12 of their combined 14 games so far this season. So I like the look of that. And then into Belgium, we covered Standard Liège earlier in the season, opposing goals, and going to do something similar again on Sunday when they play Sporting Charleroi. We backed under 2.5 goals last time. It's a bit too short now, but we can still back both teams to score no. Almost even money. It's 1.95, and it's the outsider of the two in the BTTS market, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Standard Liège have just been turgid, absolutely turgid team to follow so far this season. They're in mid-table. They played 10 league games. They've only scored 5 goals, but they've only conceded 8 themselves. They are the lowest scorers, quite comfortably the lowest scorers in the league. They have the second best defence. Now, 8 of those 10 games have gone under, but 9 of those 10 games have gone BTTS no, which is the angle here. As I say, it's the outsider of the two, which makes little sense. And they're playing a Charleroi side who've also seen both teams score no, land in 7 of 10. So you've got a 16 from 20 hit rate here. The BTTS no, at nearly even money. And if you wanted to sort of be a bit more aggressive, under 1.5 goals has landed in 6 of 10 games for each team. So what's that? 12 from 20 combined has landed for under 1.5 goals. So 0-0 or 1-0 either way. So yeah, as I say, 1.85, both teams to score no. Standard Liège, Sporting Charleroi on Sunday.
Okay, that and over 2.5 and both teams to score in Motherwell versus Dundee. Let's move on to our long shots times. And thinking of bets that are prices that don't make a lot of sense, Mark. I'm guessing you're going to make the case here because this is top versus bottom in Bundesliga too, and both teams to score no, with Dusseldorf a win is 3.5, which seems quite big.
It does. I know I'm sort of stretching the long shot tag here by putting up a 3.5 shot, but I had to find a place for this bet, and hoping they'll do it justice. As you say, it's bottom versus top in the second tier in Germany. Regensburg hosting Fortuna Dusseldorf. 3.5, just far too big. The away side are 175 favourites here, which is, I think, fair enough considering they're top. They've got a 100% away record so far this season, conceding just 2 goals in 4 away days, 4 clean sheets and 8 overall so far this season. And they're really looking to bounce back because they were beaten 3-0 at home to Hamburg before the international break. But they've been a strong side in the second tier for a while now, lost out in the playoffs last season for promotion. And this is a great opportunity to do so because Regensburg, newly promoted, finished 3rd in the 3rd tier last season. But even then, they were the lowest scorers in the top 1/3 of the league, despite winning promotion. And it's just been a massive, massive struggle for them. They played 8 games since promotion. Beggars belief, but they've managed to pick up 4 points from those 8 games, despite scoring 1 goal. 1 goal in 8 games, and they got 4 points on the board. A 1-0 win and a 0-0 draw, and 6 defeats without scoring. So just 1 goal in over 12 hours of football. They failed to score in the last 6. The last time they did score was back on the 9th of August. So, 2.5 months ago, basically. They've lost and failed to score in all 5 against the top 10. They have the worst attack and the 3rd worst defence, according to the data. They're only averaging 2.25 shots on target, which kind of highlights their issues in the final third. Yeah, just a big leap from the 175 for the away win to include both teams to score no and get it up to 3.5. As you say, bottom versus top have to be with the top team.
Yeah, let's lock that in. There's some pretty confident selections, I would say, and good cases made. Adrian, long shot time is going to lead into Mark's best bet here. So you've both landed on Cambridge versus Wigan Athletic here. Pretty much the similar angles, but make your case for the long shot anyway.
Yeah, I'll try not to steal all the stats.
Yeah.
Mark's already got a load lined up. But basically, I want to do a bet builder here and build it around a low-scoring win for Wigan. At bottom side, Cambridge just 1 point so far. Gary Monk is not going well. I think he's serving a suspension for this game as well. Won't be in the dugout. Look, Wigan, some quite extraordinary numbers around them. They haven't conceded in 7 matches in all competitions. The last time they let in a goal in League One, it was August. So it's astonishing, really. In first halves, they've let in 2 goals all season. They are unbelievably mean when it comes to giving goals away. Just 5 against all season, which is unsurprisingly, bang up there. So that they won't be frightened of going to Cambridge and grinding out a win. They probably have to grind it out because they're not high scorers themselves. Wigan only scored 9 this season, which is around about one per game. So they haven't really got sort of prolific goal scorers up front. And that's why they're in the bottom half at the moment. If they had a little bit more punch in attack, they'd be chasing the playoffs with that kind of defensive stability. So, but yeah, Cambridge are really struggling. Got a few players out of injuries, and I just think that we're going to have to be considered real favourites here. But I don't see it being high scoring. Cambridge, for what it's worth, don't get battered very often. They're quite, they want a lot of the ball and they've been involved in a lot of narrow defeats. And I see another one here. So, yeah, if you do the bet builder on this game and you select Wigan, you select both teams to score no, and you select under 2.5 goals. So, basically, we're back in the 1-0 or the 2-0 win. It comes out at 4.5 on the bet builder. And I think that's it's not the longest of long shots, but it might be worth having a little dabble.
Okay, yeah, 4.5 or 7-2. And Mark, your best bet leads into that with one of those selections.
Yeah, I'm going to back both teams to score no in the Cambridge versus Wigan game for all the reasons Adrian's outlined. But no, it's a big game for Cambridge. They're winless now in 18 games either side of the summer. Bottom of League One, just 1 point to their name so far this season. Failed to score in 6 of those 9 games. It's not going well for Gary Monk, and yeah, he is serving a touchline ban this weekend. So, got to oppose goals really at these kind of prices. 191 for both teams to score no. It's 1 in 6 of Cambridge's opening 10. As Adrian says, the Wigan data is just astonishing, really. They opened their account this season with back-to-back defeats, but since then, just 1 defeat in 8 League One matches. That was at Birmingham in stoppage time. But their defence has just been remarkable, really. They've kept 7 clean sheets in those 8 games, only conceding against Birmingham. And the issue has been in forward areas. So you look at their last 5 League One games, 4 of them have ended 0-0. So BTTS No has been a winner in 9 of their 10 games this season as well. And if you look at the 2 teams' combined records this season, they've scored just 15 goals in 19 League One matches. 15 of those 19 saw both teams to score no land. Wigan's matches overall this season, 1.4 goals per game in total. Pretty dreary stuff. So you're getting, 1.91 on either or both teams failing to score. It just stood out to me as one of the best bets in the coupon.
Okay, 191, both teams to score no. Final selection of the day, Adrian, Luton versus Watford. Rob Edwards against Watford. You're basically in this bet expecting low-scoring game, although giving yourself plenty of wiggle room, but also a lot of cards. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Luton Watford. Luton Watford hate each other. I mean, I heard it described as the M1 derby today. That's rubbish. Don't like that. That's a terrible name for it. But
they
don't like each other.
Beds and Hearts derby. It's got the worst name ever, I think. Isn't it the Hearts and Beds derby or the Beds and Hearts derby?
Yeah, it's definitely Hertfordshire v Bedfordshire. Yeah, it's poor. But they despise each other. Obviously, you got the Rob Edwards factor as well, with him getting ditched after 11 games and then turning up at Luton and getting them promoted. So, and of course, he's under pressure at the moment. Luton have had a pretty, very ropey start to the campaign. Again, this is Mark rubbing off on me. I've looked at booking points here. I thought, well, this is a game that's going to be feisty. I've had a look into the history. This is not a very often played match, actually. They've just met 4 times in recent years, and 3 of the last 4 meetings have been 1-0, 1-0, 2-0. So very low scoring games. So I like under 4.5 goals. I don't think it's going to be particularly high scoring. Luton have struggled to score this season. They've missed a lot of chances. Watford on the road have actually been not very good at all. A few blanks in there, several defeats. They're doing well this season, Watford, but it's really based on their form at Vicarage Road. So don't have a lot of confidence on the road. Don't really have a striker they can rely on to score goals, Watford. And as I say, Luton are under real pressure. So it really is a must not lose for Luton here. So I think low scoring is fine, under 4.5. Now on the cards, I'm looking at over 49.5 booking points, which is basically it's five yellows or more. Could be less if there's a red. The referee, Stephen Martin, has been given this gig. 6 EFL fixtures for him this season, a total of 39 yellow cards, 11 of which came in a game between Middlesbrough and Stoke, which is quite remarkable. But even if you took that away, he still averages over 5 yellow cards per game, does Stephen Martin. Factor in that this is a derby where there's quite a lot of spite. Across the last 3 meetings between Luton and Watford, 17 yellow cards and 2 red cards. So there's a bit of history for it. So yeah, that's my little bet builder to finish with. Under 4.5 and over 5 bookings, 1.98.
Mark just nodding in approval like a proud friend. Yeah.
Proud of you, Adrian.
I did not think the Matchbook listeners and myself would be cheering on cards in the Saturday 12:30 game on Sky. I'm sure it's on one of the Sky channels. But here we are. We will be doing that on Saturday at 12:30. So very much looking forward to the early kickoff there. My thanks to Mark and Adrian. It is great having club football back. We'll be back for Champions League, Premier League podcasts coming. So well worth staying tuned to the Matchbook channels. That Champions League podcast will be available from Monday and recorded on Monday as well if you want to tune in live. But until then, enjoy the weekend football. Make sure betting enjoys the enhancements of watching the football. Please do so responsibly. We'll chat to you next week. Bye bye.